No one's giving us the playbook on how to figure this all out. We're carving the way as we go. We're getting creative. We're having fun with it, but we're also feeling an immense amount of pain and suffering. And that is the boat being pulled back for the empath. Is like, it's so painful to sit with everyone's pain at the same time, and it's just impossible not to. So, just constantly, my life coach always tells me, pour more love on yourself.
Welcome to the Kindness Is podcast, where we take a deep dive into the true meaning of kindness. I'm your host, Kaitlin Johnstone, the co-founder of Kind Cotton. Let's dive in. Friends, I am so excited about my guest this week for the Kindness Is pod. When I say that she is the true embodiment of a powerful woman, I am not exaggerating. When I think about womanhood, I think about authenticity, vulnerability, the power to use your inner strength to know who you are and do exactly what it is that you know in your heart and soul is going to fill your cup and is going to move you forward to become a better person. We sit down this week and dissect all of that. And not only when I think about being a powerful woman do I think about all personal qualities, but I think about what it means to actually uplift others. I reached out to Tori a couple of years ago on a whim, thinking there is no way that this successful person is going to want to partner with little old me. And guess what? She ended up being the most encouraging, uplifting, supportive human on this planet. And you are in for a very special treat today because she is wise beyond her years. And I can't wait for you to hear all that she has to say about the meaning of true kindness. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Kindness Is pod. I'm so excited because today I have Tori Deal with me. Now, Tori and I have collaborated a couple of times in the past, but I'm so excited to chat with her today. She is a self-love advocate, fierce competitor, and champion of MTV's The Challenge. She dedicates her time to self-growth and creating projects that inspire others to embark on their own journey. She is the author, as many of you probably know if you have followed us, of The Search for Syrup and her latest book, The Soul Spill. Tori, thank you for being here.
Oh, Kaitlin, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to work with you over these years and witness the work and the magic that you put into the world. So it's an honor to collaborate and have this conversation with you today.
Also, how has it been years? Like, that's a weird thing to say.
Yeah, it has been years. Yeah. I mean, when did you hit me up first? It was like
2 years ago.
Wild.
Yeah, which is really interesting. And I kind of want to talk about that first because, as I mentioned in the introduction, Tori is on TV, right? So when I first saw that you had a book out and I'm like, oh, I'm going to reach out to this person who's a celebrity. Never in my wildest dreams would I imagine someone to be so down to earth and like welcoming. And I think that's a really good point, is that we're all human, right?
Yeah. That's like totally something I lead with. And I have the luxury of being on reality TV where like personality leads first. And so obviously, like being myself on TV, it does make it easy for me to just continue to be myself in the real world too. There's not like a front. And unless we're competing in some crazy competition, you're not going to see the weird darker sides of me that come out, because there's just no need for that in like creativity and collaboration. So yeah, I mean, it's just been like a blessing in disguise to be on reality TV, because then I get to just keep connecting with people based on who I am as a person. So it's been easy and flawless to work with people like you.
I love that. And that's what I try to tell people all the time is social media can be amazing, right? Like you can find your people. You can find who moves your soul. You can find the people who are doing the work that you believe is so important. But you can also find some haters. And this is something that you and I have talked about in the past. But honestly, to anyone out there listening, how do you continue that road of self-love and compassion and just this fierce knowing who you are when you do receive a lot of hate?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I feel like it's part of like the core of, I think what I'm summing up as why I'm here, like what I'm designing purpose out of that question in a way, because it's one of those things that when somebody doesn't like you, it's going to hit a trigger in your life, and then you're going to have to overcome it. And then you're going to think that you're good, and you're going to think everything's all good. And then again, the universe is going to throw another trigger your way, and then you're going to have to overcome it again. And it genuinely becomes like a muscle that you have to train of like, okay, wait a minute, right now I'm triggered. I can either be really upset about this, or I can just objectively look at the situation. And I try to do it like that every single time. Anytime somebody says something negative to me, I do look at it and I'm like, is that something that I believe? Do I subscribe to what they're saying to me? And if it is it something I want to change and that I want to be better at? Because ultimately, if I'm a person and I'm on this planet, I'm just trying to be the best version of myself. So do I want to take that as a note, or do I want to just like recognize that maybe that's just somebody projecting their feelings onto me? Maybe they don't have a place to put those negative emotions. Maybe I'm the easy person in this moment. And so it's just about analyzing like what's the source of the hate and then figuring out how I want to deal with it once I identify that. So I kind of try to be very objective about the entire thing now.
You know, that's actually a really interesting viewpoint. And I don't know that it's one I've heard before. Like, you get a lot of block and delete and protect your peace, or, don't even think about it twice. But I've never really heard someone say, well, wait a second. Like, let's actually listen to what this person is saying. And if there is some self-growth that I can make,
yeah,
so be it. If not, then kind of go about your day. I really like that.
Yeah. And I think that is also a product of being on TV for so long. Like being on TV from I was 23 years old was my first show, and now I'm 30. So for 7 years, so from the age of 23 to 30, those are pivotal years of your life where you're doing some dumb crap and you're going out there. Like, we all know those years. I just happen to live those years publicly on TV. So no matter what, was in a very growing stage of my life. And that's kind of what helped me to take on that understanding of like, okay, do I want to grow from this, or do I want to let it go? And it's been helpful. But I do think that like there is a certain microscope that, when you're on reality TV, people do tend to be more judgmental. But then also it's a pressure cooker, and it does force the person on TV to grow up faster in a way. So it's harder. It's not the easiest way, but it definitely has provided me with the ability to look at myself as just as somebody that deserves the opportunity to grow, because ultimately, like, that's what we all have and we all should have and we all deserve.
Yeah. I always say that I think where so many people get stuck is that openness to change, right? Whether it be in yourself, whether it be that you're on like an anti-racism journey, or you're just trying to be a better parent or a better human in general. We all fall subject to our egos, and we forget about that openness to change.
Yes. Yeah. And also it's difficult when we're so open to it, or certain people are, and then you see other people aren't. And then when you're trying to like go about this stage of growth with somebody who doesn't have that same openness, it's just like, yes, we retreat back into our egos, because it's like, fine, if you don't want to grow, then you're going to get the side of me that's ungrown, and it's very difficult to not retreat back into that version of ourselves. So across the board, it's not an easy journey, but I do think that it is a practice, and it does require us to like always and constantly come home to ourselves and just recognize like, okay, at the end of it all, I want to walk out of this life feeling like I tried to evolve as much as I could as a person, and tried to be respectful of my surroundings, and like really, really give life the appreciation it deserves, no matter where it comes from, no matter what it looks like. And I just think all of those things are so important. So it's a journey that's worth going through, even when it is in the face of somebody else's, ego.
Yeah. You know what I really appreciate about you too is your willingness to be vulnerable, even on television. Like, you have shared your mental health journey with millions of people. What has that been like for you?
That has been like truly relieving. I feel like vulnerability, yes, I guess it can be scary in many ways, and I understand it. But in many ways, it's so relieving. It's so relieving when you don't have to like put up a front, and when you can just tell people exactly how you feel and exactly what's going on, and not worrying about what they think about you. Because I mean, listen, like people's opinions, like what do they truly do for us? Unless they're going to help us grow and to be better versions of ourselves. And then that's still on us to decide what we want to do with them. So we're still in control of literally everything we do with our lives. So being vulnerable, it's just like set me free. Like talking about going on antidepressants, I did that because Sarah Bareilles did that. Sarah Bareilles posted on her Instagram. She had like a little Instagram picture of a little pill in her hand. And I was shook. I was like, obviously Sarah Bareilles, like, I don't know her and I don't follow her that deeply, but like I love her music. And when I think about it, and I was really struggling at that time before I went on antidepressants, I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, I have tried so many different things in this mindfulness space, meditation, yoga, running like a maniac. Like I've taken space away from people. I've done a lot of things. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I could just use this little thing as a tool. And it was so helpful, even to just do it, because I'm still on them now, but I have had a time and space where I came off them for a couple months as well. So it's about, I look at them as a tool, and I don't see it as something I'm going to be on forever. And I'm just kind of understanding now in this place in my life of what it looks like to feel just normal, you know? And so I think knowing that Sarah Bareilles posted it and was so vulnerable, it gave me the opportunity to be vulnerable as well. And it's kind of like, you know, you have one hand out in front, you have one hand out behind you. Like somebody's always going to be pulling you forward. You're always going to be helping somebody come with you. And it's just kind of that. So I see it more as just like elevating the general consciousness of humanity just by sharing truth.
Yes. And that representation is so important. I mean, we talk about that all the time, right? But just knowing that there are other people out there who many times, like I said in the beginning of this podcast, may not appear in their full humanity, right? Like someone on TV or someone who you think you know from following them on social media. When they post something like that, it has a really big impact.
Yeah, 100%. It does. And it's important that we do impact each other in that way.
Yeah.
And that is truly why vulnerability is so important on all parts of the spectrum. Like we have to be able to like take a step back and like look at ourselves as a society and see what's going on. And we can't do that if we don't have data to collect. And if we don't authentically share what's going on, we don't have data. So like we need to be able to observe ourselves from an individual level, and then from like an overarching, like, who are we as a people? And, you know, in order for us to elevate and become better as time progresses.
Yeah, absolutely. To shift gears a little bit, but not so much, you mentioned you love playing your guitar. You mentioned dancing. I said in the beginning, not only are you on TV, but you were a writer. You're on your second book now. Have you always been a creator, an artist? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Because it's just like playing with like yourself in like a childlike way. Like you just get to explore and create and like make things up that aren't real and like escape in that realm of whatever you design, which is just so nice to live in that world, because, you know, we have no control in the outside world. And when we write a song, or when we write a book or poetry, or when we go to a candle making class, or whatever you want to do, you paint something, like whatever you have, whatever's in front of you, that's yours. And you have full control over it, and you get to play with it and manipulate it in whatever way you want. And you can express yourself through it. And it's just so beautiful. So I've always loved doing anything that involves art. It's just, I've always been into acting. I've always been into expressing myself. And so it's like, not necessarily the most promoted thing in the world. Like, I think art is definitely incredibly necessary, and I think it's the heart of the world, but it's not what runs the world. What runs the world is this like very structured financial business side. And it's really difficult as an artist to try to bleed through and make sure that you have your heart felt through this business aspect in which runs and operates the systems of the world. So it's like figuring out that balance as an artist. Like, how can we take what our passions are and then like sift them and put them into these grids, which they don't necessarily belong in, but unfortunately, just because, it's just the way things are. It's just the nature of everything. So I do it for fun. I do it when no one's looking. And then also my latest and like past couple years of my life has been trying to figure out how to turn my art into my work. That way I don't ever have to leave that world, because and I'm sure you agree, like you have your book out now, like you've completely shifted outside of working in education and brought yourself into your own business and have made collaboration opportunities to the point where now you've literally written your own book. So you're doing we are from the same tree.
Yeah. I mean, I wish most people listen to this. I wish you could have seen my face when Tori was just talking about just feeling this intense pull toward art and creation and humanity, and knowing that you have to fit it into this corporate box. Like, I was like, holy shit, excuse my language.
Yeah.
This is everything that I feel. I mean, dating back to even when we first started our company, like I wanted a shirt to have a message behind it, right? Like, so every single time I put out a product, I wrote a blog to go with it, because I'm like, this is not just a tee. This is everything that I am feeling. This is what's going on in the world. These are action steps that you can take. Like, I feel every design with every ounce of my being. And then, like, taking it that step further and writing something that is always there. How does that feel for you? Talk about being vulnerable. Writing a book is the most vulnerable thing I think I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, but it's so beautiful and it's so rewarding. And your book is so good. I love it. I was sitting right back there on my couch. I read it multiple times. I was like, I read it once for the words. I had to go back and look at it with the pictures. And then I got it was a multiple thing experience for me. I really, really enjoyed it. So, and I know exactly how you feel, because you live in that world, you immerse yourself in it, and it's your child. It's a product of you. And yes, it's very vulnerable because you share it and you want it to do well. And you really have like, that corporate world puts these expectations on us. Like, what is our time worth that we put into it? What is the money it takes to promote all of these things? But like, if we were to take that away and we were to like sit with it, and at the end of our life, we were to look back and think, what am I most proud of? I guarantee you that project you made is going to be on that list of things.
Yeah.
And therefore you can't quantify the importance of it. And that's why it is necessary to do. And at some point in time, you don't know, especially if you keep committed to stuff like this, you never know if one of them is going to absolutely blow up and just, turn into a thing that helps you to be able to like live off of. Right. And so I just think that when you're an artist, the biggest thing that pulls us out of our art is worried that it won't be successful based on corporate data, which is just so like, how dull is that? It just sounds great. It sucks the life and energy out of a project. Like, that's not why I'm here. And if we want to change the narrative of what it means to be alive and to create, then that means that we have to just continue to do it. Otherwise, we're going to let corporate big buildings fog out our ability to, come up with these incredible ideas that make us feel great, and whoever reads them absolutely love them. So it's a win-win across the board, as long as you just don't stop.
Oh, I agree. And so I know with The Search for Syrup, which was Tori's first book, you chose to self-publish. Did you do the same thing with The Soul Spill? And can you talk about that a little bit? Like, why? I mean, I think you just did, but really go into like the intricacies as to why self-publishing is so important.
It is important because basically we were going to get it picked up by a publishing company, and Apparently, I don't know if I can necessarily trust the people who were showing it to the publishing companies or not. I'm still questioning all of that. But Penguin, Random House, Scholastic, a bunch of them turned it down. And I was kind of faced with this moment of like, okay, am I going to pull the trigger on a project, complete the rest of the art, and put it out into the world? Or am I going to be sad that a little publisher told me no? And then I'm like, absolutely not. If you know anything about me from the challenge, I am not going to back down. Like, where's the fun in that? Like, okay, cool. It's an uphill battle. And sometimes I'm probably going to be upset. Sometimes I'm probably going to cry. But ultimately, now I understand so much more about self-publishing, especially because this is the second time I'm doing a book self-publishing. And this is a whole different way I've gone about it. The first time I did a print-on-demand site. So now I'm just learning how to work with actual manufacturers and to get the books printed and to buy in bulk and all of these things that I didn't know in the past. And so that has been such a beautiful journey and experience. And the way I look at it is like, listen, if you want to learn the ins and outs of an industry, especially if you do want to be in it, then like, yeah, you got to learn it. And like, sometimes it's going to have a little hiccup. Like, I'm not going to even lie. We had a huge hiccup with the Soul Spill because we didn't understand how much shipping costs when it comes during a certain period of time. They can just hike the shipping up for no reason. So we had to literally double our down payment for the Soul Spill. So we're pretty much like in a position where we thought we were going to be in a very different spot financially at this point, and we are just not. And and I'm taking that on the chin as a beautiful lesson, because now I know, because first of all, my creativity is not going anywhere. And if you're a creator or somebody who's passionate, that doesn't go somewhere just because there's a hiccup. You're going to come up with a new idea. So it's like, how do I figure out the strategy on how I'm going to deal with this? Or how can I use the lesson from this individual book on the next one and on the next one until eventually you have a seamless approach. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm giving myself the opportunity to take time to learn the ins and outs of these industries and to learn how to self-publish. And then who knows, maybe I will work with a publisher in the future. But right now I'm really enjoying the confidence that I'm learning from just doing it by myself.
And it's all yours. Like, you make every decision artistically, creatively, everything that you do with it. And that's like, for me, why I was like, yes, similar to you. I knew my illustrator. I knew what I wanted. I knew the look and the messaging. If you or I want to put out a shirt to go with it, like, you own all of the rights to everything. And I feel like that's just so special. And you can't take for granted. I mean, I also want to say that there's like immense privilege with being able to take on a project like this financially. Cause like you said, like, I'm scared right now, right? Like, once this episode comes out, the book will have already been out. So everyone send me your good vibes. But it's a really scary process to take on, but it's also comes with like tremendous amounts of privilege. Tell us about the Soul Spill. Because I love when I tell you all that I'm like super into horoscopes and signs and all of these things. And I first realized that Tori was writing poetry when she did a poem about being an Aquarius. And I was like, never in my life have I heard something that resonated more deeply.
Oh, I love that.
Yes. Like, it was me, like the passion and everything. So to hear that you were then turning your poems into a book was really exciting.
And that is thank you so much, by the way. Thank you. That means the world to me. And also, it's like another way to access being a writer for free without turning it into a book is to create an online platform and to start sharing your work, which is why I decided to go with a poetry book, because I was getting comments from people like, hey, I love your work. I want to get prints of it. Like, I have people who have gotten tattoos of my poems. 2 people now have tattoos of my poems. And
I'm so cool.
It's crazy. Like, it's crazy. And like, how rewarding is that? So as somebody who just put my work out there and then eventually had built a fan base around that, obviously I'm privileged to say that I come from a TV show, and that has helped me initially build up my fan base in the first place. But I will also say, when you are on a TV show and people see you as one way, for you to shift gears and to present yourself into the world as an author is a very different experience, and there's a lot of hate that comes from it. I have people sending me crazy DMs about me trying to be a poet, saying that I get my poetry from ChatGTP. Like people, it's a different type of battle, but regardless, I still have a nice, the exposure to a bunch of people. But regardless, putting it out there on social media has given me the confidence from the people who did see it and like it to go out there and to make a book around it. And so the soul spill is so interesting because when I brought Vera in on the project, because like I've worked with her on Search for Syrup, and it's really nice to have a collaborator to work with, to talk through, to edit, to kind of like fine tune certain things. And she was just so helpful in that area. And when we sat down originally, I'm like, okay, I have like 80 poems. A lot of them aren't published yet. Like I haven't put them on Instagram. That's what I mean when I say published. And I'm like, they're not out. How am I going to turn these poems into a book? How can I make it a cohesive experience? And so that was just an interesting creative project in itself. And the whole story is threaded through this myth-like poetry. So basically every chapter comes with a new chapter heading and then its own little poem, which explains the depth of that chapter. So we go from birth of a soul, from what it's like to imagine just like opening your eyes on the planet and like seeing it for what it is. So like totally just like being a baby soul, to then roaming the earth, which is about understanding the depths of humanity, our conflicts, how horrible we can be, how amazing we can be, kind of like all of that, to then being feeling absolutely disconnected from people, to then losing yourself in the other. So finding love, but like a toxic love, like that first love that like pulls you out and makes you feel like everything's going to be okay. And so there's a lot of poems about that. So then poetry about devastation and feeling absolutely broken when it's ripped from you, and then rebirth, coming back into yourself, building yourself back up, and then ascension. And I pulled a lot of the ascension poems from my ayahuasca experience and how I felt after that. And so it's really just the thread of like what it means to come into this planet, experience it, and to eventually come back to yourself. And it's just been so powerful to write. It's been so amazing to sit in. And I hope that people give it a chance, because you can pick it up from any page and enjoy any one of the poems individually. But like if you read it from front to back, like there's a flow and a story there. Whether or not it's obvious, everything there is meticulously placed to make sure that the reader has an experience that takes you on a journey from lost to love and from ground to sky. So it's just been an amazing experience, and I'm really proud of it.
You should be. That is huge. That is amazing. And I can't wait to read it. I already ordered my copy. Anyone who is listening, you need to go and check it out. Thanks. I absolutely cannot wait. I cannot let you go without asking about ayahuasca, because you mentioned, I'm surprised to hear that it came up in your birth of the soul spill. And I'm curious, as brief as you can make it, I'm sure, what was it like? Like, what did you take away from that? I have heard so many incredible things. I want to live vicariously through you.
Yes. And I will take you on the journey, because it was so special. And it's taking yourself out of the world that we all feel very suffocated by. And it's putting yourself in the middle of the jungle with an indigenous community who's just so beautiful and wise, and like their system and how they live is just it's so foreign to us because we're so disconnected from it. And I left, literally, I was filming a TV show, Ride or Dies. And while I was filming it, I kept saying, if I win, I'm going to do ayahuasca, because we were filming in Argentina. And I know that they do ayahuasca in Peru and Ecuador. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go find a spot and I'm going to do it. I kept saying it. I'm going to do it if I win. I'm going to do it if I win. Sure enough, I win. And I was like, I'm way too tired. The final was 5 days long. I was like, absolutely not. I cannot do it. I have to go home. I have to sleep. Like, I have to sleep. And I get home 2 days after I get home. I get hit up by one of my good friends. His name's Brennan Durrell, and he's an incredible healer. Hits me up out of the blue. He doesn't even know I'm home yet. I haven't even messaged people. He goes, just calls me and he's like, hey, T, I'm going to do ayahuasca in Ecuador. You want to come in 3 weeks? And I got chills over my body because I called it in. And not only that, she asked for me. She invited me. So I'm like, all right, well, now I got to go. And I am lucky that I was able to go with 2 of my girlfriends. And then we met with a group of 20 people down there. And for 4 days, for the first 3 days, you're just integrating with the world, right? Like you're going to breathwork ceremony. Everything is outside. You sleep outside. You have a bug net around your bunk. And you're in like an outdoor palapa, and it's, I mean, obviously, I don't think the palapa would be indoor, but you're in a beautiful wooden palapa. Like it's just such a beautiful experience. And you're in the jungle. Like I saw sloths. I saw like, and you're just in nature. And then you start to like really feel like you're there, especially when you fall asleep. So our shaman, his name was Manati, and he is a dream interpreter, and he literally would interpret our dreams every single morning. And the night before I did ayahuasca, I told him, I'm like, I had a dream that there was this snake, you know, wrapping itself around my bunk and going around our little space that we were sleeping in. He was like, that wasn't a dream, that was a vision, and the spirit of the river is with you. And so just so crazy, because when I did my ayahuasca experience, it was profound. And I talk a lot about it in the big section in Ascension. So I don't want to go too much into it right now. But what I will say is, after you read that part, it goes downhill, because then I start to purge. But while I'm purging, I am throwing up into this snake's mouth that I saw in the night before. And it was literally saying, purge, purge. And then after it was all done, so the whole thing lasts 7 hours, and I'm skipping over the best parts. Like the best parts are the euphoric moments when I felt like I was, and totally was, in a hallway in the sky, and like, I could see infinite doors in front of me and infinite doors behind me, and everything feels very much like a dream. Like you're not seeing it with your physical eyes. It's not like a hallucination. It's like a dream. It's like a trance. So across the board, it was very powerful. It is not for the lighthearted. I feel like if it calls you, it will call you, and you will do it, and it will be so worth it. I totally feel that. And I just, you know, I feel like I'm still feeling remnants of it. There's still moments where I feel like I go back to it a little bit. Like it almost like it doesn't leave you after you see it. And I definitely think in the future, I'll definitely do it again when the time is right and I'm called to do it again. But it was hard. It was beautiful. It was powerful. And it definitely reminded me that there's so much more. There's so much more. There really is. And that's why it's important to be on this planet and to just do the things that like your soul calls you to do. Every little whisper, this is another like gem that I got from it. Every little whisper, every little feeling I had, that wasn't just a feeling. That's my higher self communicating with me, telling me that this is the path I'm supposed to be on. And so trusting that more, allowing yourself to like really, really, really listen to yourself, tap into that intuition. And so when I'm in my room and I'm doing my dancing at night and being an absolute, whatever you want to call me, like just wild woman, I'm listening to thoughts. I'm listening to things come up. I'm opening space so my higher self can come through me and give me the next clue of where I'm supposed to go next. And I'm allowing myself to be an active participant in life with the universe, looking for my purpose of why I'm here. So ultimately, it's just made me a more open-minded person when it comes to connecting with my higher self and my spirituality.
That is so beautiful. I just wish that all of us could take a little bit of that and also be in nature more. So our daughter goes to nature school. Like she doesn't go to traditional preschool. Even, yes, in the dead of winter, people, she is outside. There's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothes.
Yeah.
And she is embracing herself in just being and playing and in touch with nature. And it's something that's so foreign, as you said, to us, particularly in America, that when I tell the average person this, they're like, why would you do that to her?
No.
Or like, what do you like? What does she do when it rains? And I'm like, they drink the rainwater. Like it's like this whole thing, and it's amazing. And I so want to just like be her and her classmates when I grow up because
my sister,
more of it.
100%. My sister's an educator, as I mentioned many times. and she's now getting her master's in education. And she wrote her thesis paper on why kids should be outside and how much better they are at learning, and how much, like, I don't know the stats because I didn't read the paper, but she sent me like bits and pieces of it. And this is literally my sister's life work, is discovering how much better it is to have nature's influences on children, because we're not meant to be cramped up. We're not meant. We're not meant. And you know what's crazy? I just have to say this too, because it just reminded me. Manati, the shaman that I went to go see, he talks about how in the spirit realm, people like Elon Musk and people like just the guy who runs Amazon, what's his name? Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, thank you. Isn't that terrible? I don't think.
No, I mean, it's not.
I know. I'm okay with not thinking about it.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah. But people like them, he says, in the spirit realm, in the material realm, they think they're so rich. But in the spirit realm, they're locked in these little pyramids, walking in circles, pacing in tiny, tiny, tiny little pyramids. And I was just like, yes. He was like, their souls are dying. And I'm like, I get that. I so get that. And I think that, like, reminding, like, what you're talking about and what your daughter's doing, like, that's what's going to keep the spirit of us alive. It's to be connected and to remember separation is an illusion. We are very much a part of this world. We are very much a part of it.
We truly are. I think people forget it many times, but we are definitely connected. Two things. I realized that when I first was promoting the search for syrup, I did have a lot of people, which I never realized before, who love the challenge. So for those listeners who do know you perhaps from the challenge, but who would you ultimately want to work with, male, female, above anyone else, and why?
In a final?
Yeah.
Okay, if I'm running a final and I have a guy partner, 100% Jordan, because he's the GOAT when it comes to long distance and strategy. And in a final, no one's beating him. No one's beating him. Like, he's just truly the greatest. CT, obviously, when it comes to like daily challenges, because CT's got that strength and you need a lot more of that. Jordan can also crush that. CT and Jordan are the best guys to ever do it. And if I had to pick a girl, I'd probably pick between Laurel, because she's just probably the best girl player ever. Like, she's the GOAT.
Or yourself. You're not giving yourself credit. No, I know. Laurel's
I've stood next to Laurel before. If I beat her or something, I'm lucky, dude. I'm fucking lucky. She's a beast, and she's a vet. She's a doctor. Like, this woman is so brilliant in so many ways. So, or like an Emily Strom. Like, I feel like Emily and I would be absolute powerhouses together. But there's so many good players. There's so many good ones, and it just depends on what the game is. So I think that if I had to pick my top 4, it would probably be those guys, though.
Awesome. So this wouldn't be the Kindness Is podcast if I did not ask you before leaving what your true definition of kindness is.
I love this question too. And I love that you've sculpted the book around this, and it's just so powerful and beautiful to think about, because it is different for everybody. And I really think that kindness is just giving people grace. Like, it's just recognizing, like, we're all going to make mistakes, and like, we could absolutely be mad at each other for those mistakes, or we could just like take a step back and be like, we're people and we're trying to figure it out. So I think it's giving people grace. And I think, I try to continue to give people as much grace as possible, because I want it, because I know for sure I'm going to need people's grace when I mess up again, because it's going to happen. It's inevitable. So, but I love this question. I think it's such a beautiful thing. And I can't wait to share this book with my nephews and my niece. And I'm so proud of you. You did it.
Thank you. I'm so proud of you too. And I'm just grateful for this connection. You really are. You're an amazing human.
You too. Not us crying on the podcast.
No, I know. It's like, I don't know. I mean, I wanted to wrap it up, but honestly, life has been difficult lately, as I'm sure a lot of you have been feeling. And when I tell you too that for some reason I felt drawn to reach out to Tori, like, I don't know, 2 weeks ago now, and to just have another human tell you that what you're feeling is valid and that who you are matters and that the space that you are in is the space you are meant to be in really means a lot. So I value you. Thank
And
you.
same, of course, and same. Like it meant a lot to me for you to reach out to me as well. Like it was very mutual. So it's important that we just continue like across the board to like be there for each other because like no one's giving us the playbook on how to figure this all out. We're carving the way as we go. We're getting creative. We're having fun with it, but we're also feeling an immense amount of pain and suffering. And that is the boat being pulled back for the empath is like, it's so painful to sit with everyone's pain at the same time. And it's just impossible not to. So, you know, just constantly, my life coach always tells me, pour more love on yourself, pour more love, more, like just more love on yourself. And so if I could leave everybody with that, anything today, it would be that pour more love on yourself, no matter where you're at, no matter what you're doing, because it's only going to help you.
And that is the best way to end this. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
So I just took like an hour to process my conversation with Tori, and I just kept going back to that. Pour self-love on yourself. If there is anything that you do this week, remember that you need to love yourself the same way you love others, that you need to show up for yourself the same way you show up for others, that you need to provide yourself with the same amount of compassion that you do others. And I hope that you sit with that as I just did, and that you take that and practice it week in and week out, day in and day out, forever and always. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Kindness Is podcast. If you love it and it's adding even a little bit of value to your life, we would love if you could subscribe, rate, and review so we can reach even more people and make this world a little bit more kind.